Yunsu collapsed onto the ground. Cheya, alarmed, asked what he was talking about, but he only wept in silence. He clasped his hands together as if in prayer, and Cheya, overwhelmed, also started crying. She pleaded with him to tell her that it wasn't true, that Geurim wasn't really gone. Desperate for an answer, she reached out to him, but Yunsu suddenly pushed her hand away, accidentally scratching the side of her lip in the process. A drop of blood trickled down upon it, and as soon as Yunsu saw it, his eyes changed. Slowly, he started moving toward her. Chaya instinctively backed away and asked if he was planning to harm her. She reminded him of their promise that he couldn't hurt her, but Yunsu barely seemed to register her words. His voice was hollow as he muttered, "I don't want to go on like this." Chaya tried to snap him out of it, but he held her wrist tightly. Then, with an eerie slowness, he wiped the blood from her face and murmured, "I need more." Just then, something shifted in his expression. He sensed another presence in the house. Taking advantage of the distraction, Chaya swung her crutch at him, striking him before storming out, cursing him under her breath. Yunsu called after her, telling her not to leave, but she didn't stop. Anger flared in Chaya's chest. She had been so worried about him, yet all he could think about was his own torment. But before she could take another step, a forceful grip yanked her back and shoved her into a room. It was Yunsu. He shut the door, hiding her from sight, just as Father entered. The two vampires locked eyes, and Father smirked. "It's good to see you're still thinking ahead, even in the middle of all this," he remarked. He glanced around and added, "I came to check on things. It looks like you're the only one left in this house now. So, Geurim is really gone." Then, as if nothing had happened, he turned and left, throwing in a final warning for Yunsu to behave. Inside the room, Chaya had heard everything. Her mind raced. There's someone more powerful than Yunsu? But then, all other thoughts faded as the weight of reality settled over her. Geurim was truly gone. Just then, a voice broke the silence. "Has he left?" Yunsu froze, confused. Chaya, on the other hand, was in complete shock. Standing in front of her was Geurim. Still dazed, he looked at her and asked again, "Has that man left?" As soon as Geurim's name left Chaya's lips, Yunsu barged into the room. Their eyes met, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Yunsu took a step forward, but Geurim immediately backed away. He turned to Chaya and said firmly, "I'll go back with you. Otherwise, I'll never come back again." Chaya hesitated before nodding. Yunsu was stunned by this, but remained silent. He simply stood there as Chaya and Geurim left together. In the car, Chaya glanced at Geurim and cautiously asked, "What happened?" Geurim shook his head. "I don't remember." She noticed dried blood on his face, but chose not to press him further. Once they arrived home, Geurim washed his face without another word and went straight to bed. Chaya also decided to sleep, convincing herself that she was just overthinking things. But Geurim wasn't asleep. He genuinely had no memory of what had happened, only that he was sure he had died back then. And when he woke up, an unbearable thirst consumed him. He had wanted to bite Chaya, who was right beside him, but somehow he managed to pull away and leave. No amount of water could quench the thirst, and it drove him nearly insane. Then, in the depths of his desperation, he saw a deer. Before he even realized what he was doing, he had attacked it. Now, as he lay beside Chaya, the hunger still gnawed at him. It felt as though he hadn't eaten in 50 years. The next morning, Chaya was startled awake by loud noises coming from outside. Irritated, she got out of bed and opened the door to see what was happening. What she saw left her in absolute disbelief. Standing there, surrounded by moving boxes, was Park Yunsu. She frowned and asked, "What are you doing here this early in the morning?" Yunsu smirked and gestured to the boxes. "Can't you see I'm moving in?" Seeing Chaya's frowning face, Yunsu commented that she should at least try to look a little happy. She ignored him and instead asked who had lived before, suspiciously adding whether Yunsu had dealt with that person. He stated that he was moving in like a normal person. Chaya reminded him that a presumed dead person had just come back to life. Nothing about this was normal. Yunsu glanced around and complained about the size of the place, calling it small. His words irritated Chaya, who demanded to know if he was doing all this because of Geurim. She accused him of being too obsessed with both her and Geurim, adding that Geurim wouldn't be happy to see him there. Then, with a mocking smirk, she taunted him, saying that vampires were pretty useless if they couldn't even take care of a child. She brought up the fact that Geurim had run away before and mockingly asked if Yunsu would cry again if it happened. Irritated by her words, Yunsu leaned in slightly and asked if she wanted to see him end his obsession. He added, with a smirk, that her blood tasted really good. Chea didn't hesitate. She bit his finger and rushed inside, shutting the door behind her as she called out that she didn't want to know. When Geurim asked what had happened, she decided it was best not to tell him about Yunsu's sudden appearance next door. Instead, she asked him what he wanted to eat, but he simply replied that he wasn't hungry. Later, as Chaya removed a band-aid from her skin, the faint scent of blood filled the air. Almost immediately, Geurim tensed. He abruptly asked if they could go out. To their discomfort, Park Yunsu followed them to the store. Chaya shot him a look, silently demanding to know why he was there, but Yunsu only responded with a feigned look of confusion. Geurim, growing irritated, told them to stop bickering with their eyes because it was annoying. The three of them stood together awkwardly, the heavy silence suffocating. Chaya glanced at both of them standing on either side of her, the weight of the situation pressing down on her. The silence was unbearable. She noticed that Geurim wasn't eating, and when she asked why, he replied that he didn't have an appetite. Yunsu, who had been listening closely, suddenly extended his hand as a man passed behind him, subtly scratching the man's skin. Chea caught the deliberate action, realizing Yunsu had done it on purpose. Geurim, who had been relatively still until now, suddenly stiffened. Yunsu turned to him, his gaze sharp. "Did you become a vampire?" he asked.